The night everything changed arrived without warning, wrapped in cold rain and the kind of silence that presses against your chest. Marcus Bennett had just finished folding laundry in his small Ohio townhouse, the glow of a single lamp lighting the scuffed walls that told the story of a life rebuilt in fragments. Being a single father had taught him how quickly ordinary moments could turn heavy. When the knock came, sharp and desperate, it cut through the quiet like a blade. He opened the door to see his neighbor standing there, soaked, shaking, and emptied of whatever strength had kept her upright until that second. Something in her eyes stopped his breath, and for the first time in years Marcus felt fear not for himself, but for another adult who had finally reached the edge of what she could carry alone. Before the story pulls you any deeper, pause for just a moment. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the quiet power of showing up for someone when it matters most, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us that humanity still lives in small, unseen moments. Marcus had not planned on knowing his neighbors well. After his wife passed away from illness 3 years earlier, he learned how to survive by narrowing his world to the essentials: his 8-year-old son Noah, his job at a local distribution warehouse, and the fragile routines that kept grief from swallowing him whole. Their street in Columbus was modest, lined with maple trees and identical mailboxes, each house holding its own quiet struggles. The woman next door had moved in 6 months earlier. Her name was Grace Holloway, a nurse who worked night shifts and waved politely but rarely lingered. She carried herself with a tired grace, the kind born from responsibility rather than ease, and Marcus often noticed how her porch light stayed on long after midnight. That evening, the rain had followed Marcus home from work, soaking his jacket as he hurried Noah inside, laughing as they raced to the door. Dinner was simple, homework was done at the kitchen table, and bedtime came with a story Marcus had read so many times he could recite it without opening the book. Once Noah slept, Marcus allowed himself the familiar ache in his chest, the one that came when the house finally went quiet. He thought about how strong he had learned to be, how being needed had saved him from collapsing inward. He didn't know that just a few steps away, someone else was unraveling. Grace's life had been slowly compressing under invisible weight. Working in healthcare had taught her how to keep going even when her body begged her to stop. She had lost her mother the previous year, taken in her younger brother Caleb after a bad turn with addiction, and watched bills stack higher than her energy could reach. Her days blurred together in exhaustion, her nights filled with worry. She was known at work as reliable, compassionate, unbreakable. But unbreakable things often shatter without warning. That night, after a shift that pushed her past endurance, she drove home in tears, sat in her car for nearly an hour, and realized she could no longer pretend she was okay. When Grace finally knocked on Marcus's door, it wasn't because they were close. It was because sometimes the nearest light feels like the only one left in the world. Marcus didn't ask questions right away. He offered a towel, a chair, and silence, the kind that doesn't judge or rush. He remembered how people had once sat with him after the funeral, how their presence had kept him from drowning in his own thoughts. He didn't know exactly what Grace needed, but he knew how to stay. The hours that followed were quiet and heavy. Rain tapped against the windows as Grace's breathing slowly steadied. Marcus made tea and listened without interrupting, letting her story spill out in broken pieces. He saw the familiar shape of burnout, of someone who had given too much of herself for too long. In that moment, Marcus realized something profound. Strength was not the absence of pain, but the courage to let someone see it. Being a single dad had taught him how to hold space, how to be patient when emotions didn't arrive neatly wrapped. As dawn approached, the house filled with the soft sounds of morning. Noah's footsteps padded down the hallway, and Marcus introduced him gently, careful to protect both his son's innocence and Grace's dignity. Noah offered a shy smile and went back to his room, and Grace's eyes filled with tears again, this time for a different reason. She saw in that small exchange a reminder of why she had chosen a life of care in the first place. Marcus saw how human connection, even the smallest kind, could re-anchor someone drifting. Over the next weeks, something shifted between the two neighbors. Not romance, not drama, but a quiet alliance built on mutual understanding. Marcus helped Grace find local resources for her brother Caleb, attending meetings with her when she felt overwhelmed. Grace returned the kindness by watching Noah on evenings when Marcus worked late, filling the house with laughter and warmth that had been missing. The street that once felt anonymous became a place of shared meals, borrowed tools, and genuine concern. Marcus noticed how helping Grace also helped him. Supporting someone else reminded him that his pain had not been wasted, that it had carved space for empathy. Grace, slowly regaining her footing, began to set boundaries at work and ask for help without shame. She learned that collapsing did not mean failing, it meant being human. Caleb entered recovery fragile but hopeful, and the weight Grace carried lightened just enough for her to breathe again. One evening months later, as autumn leaves scattered across the sidewalk, Marcus sat on his porch watching Noah ride his bike in circles. Grace joined him, both of them wrapped in sweaters, the air crisp and forgiving. There was no need for grand speeches or promises. Their lives had been altered not by miracles, but by one simple act of answering a door. If this story is touching something inside you, if it reminds you of a moment when someone showed up for you or when you wished you had knocked on a door yourself, please take a second to like this video, share it, and subscribe. Your engagement helps these stories reach hearts that may be standing in the rain right now. Just before we reach the end, here's a special request. Comment below and tell us what kindness means to you, or share a moment when a stranger or neighbor changed your life in an unexpected way. Marcus often thought back to that night and realized how close Grace had come to disappearing into her own silence. Grace, in turn, understood that asking for help had saved more than her sanity. It had restored her faith in people. In a world that often celebrates independence above all else, their story stood as a quiet testimony to interdependence. Sometimes survival looks like strength, and sometimes it looks like knocking on the nearest door and hoping someone answers. And sometimes the simple act of opening that door changes two lives forever.